How were nations created? Europe holds the answer. Not just battles, but powerful ideas. Revolutions sparked change. People demanded identity.
Empires fell. Nations rose.
Ready to explore Europe?
Let's begin.
Have you ever just looked at a world map and taken it for granted? You see France, Germany, Italy, and it all seems so permanent. Well, you might be surprised to learn that that map is actually pretty new. For most of history, Europe didn't look like that at all. It was a messy patchwork of kingdoms and empires. So today, we're going to dive into the revolutionary idea that completely redrew that map, the idea of the nation. Let's get into how this powerful concept came to be.
It really all begins with a dream. Take a look at this. This print was made back in 1848 by a French artist named Frédéric Souriau. And if you look closely, you can see people from all over the globe marching in a long line, right past a Statue of Liberty figure. And you'll notice each group has its own unique flag, its own distinct costume. They're all separate nations. Now, this wasn't reality, not even close. This was a completely radical, utopian vision for a future where people, not kings, were the ones who defined their own countries.
So that begs the question, right? What did it even mean to imagine a world of nations? I mean, for us, it's just normal. To get our heads around this, we have to travel back in time, to a world before the nation-state even existed, so we can understand what this new idea was pushing against.
You see, before the 19th century, your identity wasn't about being French or German. Not really. It was tied to your local village, your religion, and most importantly, your personal loyalty to some faraway king or emperor. This was the old order, a world of massive, sprawling empires run by dynasties.
And the key word for this era, the one you've got to remember, is absolutist. It's a system where the monarch's power was, well, it was absolute. There were no constitutions, no citizens' rights, nothing to hold them back. All power was centralized around the ruler, enforced by a big army, and yeah, it was often pretty repressive.
And this map just shows you exactly what that world looked like. This is Europe in 1815. You're not going to find a neat and tidy Germany or Italy here. Instead, you see these huge, multinational empires, like the Habsburg Empire. It was just this jumble of Germans, Italians, Hungarians, Poles, all living inside the same borders, often speaking different languages with totally different cultures. The only thing they all had in common, they were all subjects of the same emperor.
So, what lit the fuse? Where did the change really begin? Well, the spark that lit the fire of nationalism was, without a single doubt, the French Revolution back in 1789. This was the moment the idea of the nation was truly born.
And this is the absolute core of it. Before 1789, the king was France. The state and the monarch were the same thing. But the revolutionaries came along and declared, no, the people are France. And just like that, sovereignty, the ultimate power to rule, was ripped away from the king and put into the hands of the citizens. From now on, they were the nation and they would shape its destiny.
But okay, how do you make a big idea like the nation actually feel real to people? Well, the French revolutionaries were geniuses at this. They introduced powerful new concepts like la patrie, the fatherland, and le citoyen, the citizen. The old royal flag was out and the new tricolor flag was in. Suddenly, there were uniform laws for everyone, the same weights and measures, no more pesky customs duties between regions. And they pushed for a common French language. They were actively building a shared French identity from the ground up.
Now, an idea this explosive was never going to stay put in France, right? As Napoleon's armies began to march across Europe, they carried these revolutionary concepts with them. And of course, this caused a massive, fierce backlash from all the old monarchies, setting the stage for a continent-wide fight for the future.
And here's where things get really interesting and kind of paradoxical. Napoleon himself, he destroyed democracy in France and made himself an emperor. But as he conquered other parts of Europe, he acted like a delivery boy for revolutionary ideas. He brought in efficient new administrative systems, got rid of old feudal rules, and without even meaning to, spread the very idea of nationalism that would, ironically, help lead to his own downfall, as you can see in this cartoon.
And all of this set up the central political battle of the 19th century. On one side, you've got the liberal nationalists. Think of them as the rising, educated middle class. They wanted nations with governments chosen by the people, with constitutions, citizen rights, and a free press. And on the other side, you have the conservatives, the kings, the nobles, the rich.
They wanted to keep things just the way they were: traditional monarchy, social hierarchies, and total state control.
So how did the old guard react to all this? Well, they panicked and clamped down hard. After Napoleon was finally defeated in 1815, conservative leaders, like Austria's Chancellor Metternich, put the old kings back on their thrones and tried to stomp out these dangerous new ideas. This cartoon here just captures the mood perfectly. It's called The Club of Thinkers, and you can see they're all muzzled. The number one rule: silence. And if you want to know just how terrified they were, get this. That same Austrian Chancellor, Metternich, said this about an Italian revolutionary named Giuseppe Mazzini. Mazzini's big dream was a united, democratic Italy. To Metternich, a guy like that wasn't just a political rival. He was the most dangerous enemy of their entire way of life. That's how much they feared this idea.
But here's the thing: you can't keep a powerful idea down forever. No matter how hard Metternich and the old order tried to suppress it, the idea of the nation just kept bubbling up from below. It led to an entire period we now call the Age of Revolutions.
You can just see the pressure building and building through the first half of the century. First, the Greek War for Independence in the 1820s got liberals everywhere excited. Then, another revolution in France in 1830 sparked uprisings all over the place. And it all came to a head in the explosive year of 1848, the springtime of peoples, when it felt like the whole continent just erupted in revolutions demanding national freedom.
And what was fueling all this? It wasn't just politics. It was also a huge cultural movement called Romantic Nationalism. Thinkers like Johann Gottfried Herder came along and argued that a nation wasn't about its king or its borders. No, he said the true soul of a nation, its Volksgeist, was found in its common people, the Das Volk. It was in their folk songs, their poetry, their shared stories. And Romantic artists used powerful emotions to build this national feeling. Take a look at this famous painting by Delacroix. This isn't just a history painting, it's practically a piece of propaganda. By showing the intense suffering of the Greek people under Ottoman rule, he got people all across Europe fired up, creating this incredible wave of sympathy for the Greek national struggle.
Culture literally became a weapon, especially for people who didn't even have their own country. In the German lands, you had the Grimm brothers collecting fairy tales to try and find a common German spirit. In Poland, which had been carved up by its neighbors, composers took folk dances and turned them into powerful symbols of national pride. Even priests resisted Russian rule by defiantly using the Polish language in church.
And the peak of this whole liberal, from-the-ground-up nationalism was the Frankfurt Parliament in 1848. For the very first time, elected representatives from all the different German states came together to write a constitution for a single, unified, democratic Germany. It was this beautiful, hopeful moment, but it was crushed. The old monarchies and their armies were just too strong, and the dream failed.
And this is where our story takes a huge, ironic twist. After the liberals and their ideals failed to build nations from the bottom up, the conservative leaders, the very people who hated nationalism, stepped in. They co-opted the idea and used it to build nations from the top down, with power, not principles.
So the failure of 1848 proved that passion and speeches weren't enough. It created a power vacuum, and a new kind of leader stepped into it, a real pragmatist. Meet the master of this new, cynical game, Otto von Bismarck, the chief minister of Prussia. He had zero time for liberal debates. He famously said that the great questions of the day wouldn't be decided by speeches and votes, but by iron and blood.
And he wasn't kidding. Over just 7 years, Bismarck used the unstoppable Prussian army to fight 3 brilliantly calculated wars. First against Denmark, then Austria, and finally France. And with each victory, he pulled more German states into Prussia's orbit, until a new German empire was declared. The German nation wasn't born in a parliament. It was forged on the battlefield.
Now, this top-down approach was definitely effective, but we have to remember that for a long time, nationalism was still mostly a project for the elites. And there's this fantastic kind of funny story from the Italian Unification that shows this perfectly. The great nationalist hero Garibaldi was trying to rally peasants in southern Italy to his cause. The problem was, many of them had never even heard the word Italia before. They thought his battle cry, L'Italia, was the name of the new king's wife. It just goes to show how big the gap was between the idea of a nation and the reality for most people. So, the struggles of the 19th century created the world map we know today. But it leaves us with a really powerful question, one that a famous philosopher once posed. He said that a nation is a daily plebiscite, a choice that everyone makes every single day to belong together. So the question for them and for us is, when the fighting is over and the flags are raised, What is it really that holds a nation together? What makes us all choose to continue this project day after day?